What's up, everybody? Welcome to our second episode of State Champs Extra Point. This is the weekend recap, and since we did not have a Labor Day show, everyone on Labor Day should not be laboring, although I know there's still work going around here. We have a Tuesday show for you, and we're going to talk about what took place in week 2 of the high school football season. It was a very exciting weekend. We had a lot of big matchups, and we had a lot of great outcomes, and we're going to talk about it. So, Matt Mowery, John Kidd, Scott Burnstein, I'm Lorne Plant. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's get right into it. But first, before I do want to mention that Extra Point is presented by Lawrence Technological University. How about that 53-14 win over Oakland U on Saturday? We were there for that. It was quite impressive. And so Oakland County football is now owned by Lawrence
First game,
Tech.
what, in 70 years?
72 years. Yeah. The MHSAA is also a proud sponsor of this program. Go to MHSAA.com for scores and everything that you need. And Hungry Howie's, also Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser is a sponsor with us as well. We're working on trying to get Darius Slay, the new spokesman for Hungry Howie's, to kind of be involved with our Mr. Football contest. Let's get into our recap, and we'll start with Lakeland, who falls to Waterford Mott 26-19. We all successfully predicted that Waterford Mott would win that game.
Went down to the wire.
Yeah. Again, we figured Lakeland would be in the hunt, and they were. Your thoughts on that matchup?
Well, it all came. I was there. It all came down to a pretty gutsy call by Coach Woodruff in Lakeland. They had scored a touchdown with about 5 minutes to go. If they kicked the extra point, they tied it at 20-20. They decided to go for 2, and Luciano Pedini, the senior captain linebacker for Mott, met Robbie Tracy, their star running back, right at the line and pushed him back, and they never were able to take that lead, and Waterford Mott gets a leg up in the league race right now. I want to mention one more thing about that game.
Yeah.
That was a really heartfelt opening when Alex Rodriguez led the team onto the field. Alex Rodriguez was a starting defensive end last year for Waterford Mott, and him, the quarterback for Mott, Matt Castillo, and the wide receiver defensive back, Kamani Fields, were in a really bad car accident. They were hit by a drunk driver back in April, and Alex Rodriguez can't play football anymore.
Right.
He's going to try to kick extra points,
Nice.
but he was in uniform, and he let him out through the tunnel. And everyone's got an emblem on their helmet that displays his number. But, he's going to be in uniform all year. He's just not going to be on the field. And, he was lucky to escape that accident with his life. He was in open heart surgery for about 6 hours after he had a torn aorta. And it was, one of those touch and go situations, and just the fact that he's up and about and in school and able to be with the team really inspired those Mott Corsairs. And Matt Castillo in his first year at quarterbacks looked real good. He was about 8 for 14, 170 yards, 2 big touchdowns.
Yeah, there's another Fitzpatrick on that team as well.
Yeah, and one of his touchdowns was to Christian Fitzpatrick.
Right, who is Des Fitzpatrick's brother.
Yep.
Our main event on State Champs on Sunday was the Livonia Churchill and Belleville game. We had put Belleville down in the second rank. Cass Tech had ascended to number 1, so we kept them number 2 in the state. They moved to 2-0. Churchill, like we thought, was going to come in, was going to fight, was going to give a challenge. All of a sudden, they're up, 14-0, right, in the first quarter. But 4 turnovers, I believe it was, is what really turned the tide for Belleville.
I really think that going to the KLA is going to really help Belleville down the road for the playoffs. These tough games, Brighton right off the bat, Livonia, Churchill, they're going to be more battle tested when they get to the playoffs.
I thought the interesting part was that they were getting beaten when they were doing their game plan, which was blitzing. They were getting beaten on that game plan, and it was a player who went to the coaching staff, Tyrese Woods, the Michigan commit, the defensive end, and said, "Hey, coach, let us play base. Let us, just rush for, and we'll get to the quarterback." And Jermaine Crowell said, "All right, go for it," and they did it, and that's kind of how they turned it around and managed to kind of stop the bleeding defensively.
All right, let's get to number 6. Oak Park took on Groves. Oak Park moves to 2-0. Groves falls to 0-2. Just a 13-7 game here. We all, by the way, before we had all correctly predicted that Belleville would win that one. This one we all thought Oak Park would get by. We did say it was going to be close. It was 13-7.
Yeah, well, right off the bat, Oak Park went up top. Dwan Mathis to Malik Carr, and big play, and one play later, Phil Stewart takes it into the. You thought maybe it was going to be a shootout, and then there was no more scoring for about another 2 hours, it seemed like, and Khalil Dawsey ended up tying it up in the third quarter with a slip screen that he just ran past everyone, had a huge swath of green in front of him, and even as Coach Carter said, "Oh, we're not going to catch him at that point," because he's got
a great job on offense this year. I mean, he's one of the best lockdown cover corners in the state. He's going to Harvard. He had a lot of Division I offers in addition to the Ivy League, but didn't play a lot on offense last year. And these first couple games, he is explosive on the offensive side of the ball.
And they still use him sparingly. They have a package, and every time he came in, the Oak Park kids were pointing him out, and Oak Park goes ahead in the fourth quarter, and the key play, I think, was right on that first play of the next drive. They had a screen set up, and it looked like it was going to do the same thing. And one of the Oak Park defenders reached up and tipped the ball away. Just went up high as he could and tipped it away, because if that ball gets to Dawsey again, he's probably still running today on Tuesday.
Another game that you can watch the highlights on State Champs YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else is Wyandotte and Woodhaven, who got together. This was a downriver duel. Yeah. Ironically, we did not have I didn't include this in our predictions when we did it on. Somehow I skipped over it. I think we would have all taken Wyandotte, and we would have all lost because it was Woodhaven who won this one 14-10.
Before the season, it was a 3-team race to win the Downriver League. You had Gibraltar Carlson, you had Woodhaven, and you had Wyandotte Roosevelt. Well, in week 1, you had Wyandotte and Woodhaven scoring nearly 50 points. Who would have thought this game only been 14-10?
And didn't Woodhaven take out Carlson in the first game?
Yes. They beat them 49-35. Wyandotte had one last chance on a Hail Mary, and they brought it down, and hey, they're 2-0 right now. These teams are going to be playing again, first or second week of the playoffs, because that's how the districts are going to be. They're going to be playing each other again later in the season.
How it works in the Downriver League is everybody plays everybody. There's 9 teams. You play, and then you play.
And you play them again in the play.
You play them in the play,
yeah, exactly. So, which again has been the big beef with, if you don't schedule anything out of conference, especially like later in the season, you just don't really have.
Well, people I know in the Downriver League, they were hoping when Kennedy and Truman combined, they were not going to add another team. So that way it was going to allow that non-conference game, but they added Etzel Ford, right. And then it was like, oh, okay, never mind.
All right, so we had our number 5 and number 9 team going up together, going against each other. It was a rematch of the 2017 Division I state finals. West Bloomfield went to Clarkston to take on the Wolves, and this one was tight. 28-25 was the final, and Clarkston again. This is why I predicted they would win, because, and we didn't. You know what? I didn't ask you when we did the predictions. That was the one. So
well, at least it wasn't 3-2 this time.
Yeah, I don't know who you would have picked.
Clarkston, obviously.
Okay, but again, they found a way, and that I'll give a lot of.
They doubled the total points in the state championship games by the by the 8-minute mark.
This is the game we wanted to see in the state championship, but I'll give all credit. You can probably tell me his name, the running back for Clarkston,
Jake Billette.
Yeah, Billette.
Well, they have a 2-headed monster in Jake Billette and Jake Honstetter. Yeah. But Billette had the 2 big touchdown
runs. Big ones, big up the gap. Just wasn't going to be caught, and he had guys on his heels.
Yeah. And really, the turning point on Friday was senior cornerback Zach Reed for Clarkston picked off a pass, 76-yard pick six, returned it for a touchdown. Clarkston had given up the lead that they had at halftime. West Bloomfield scored in the third quarter to go on top. Clarkston takes back the lead in the final seconds of the third quarter, and then never relinquished it the rest of the way. Jake Billette tacked on a touchdown in the fourth quarter. A star in the making is West Bloomfield's quarterback, C.J. Harris. This guy is a little bit reminiscent of Tristan Jackson in terms of his ability as a dual threat at quarterback. He had 140 yards passing, 120 yards rushing, combined for over 250 yards.
Orchard Lake St. Mary's traveled west, as they do quite often early in the season. They went to East Kentwood. This was a real interesting matchup. East Kentwood falling in the opener, Orchard Lake as well. They fall 0-2 because they give up 63 points.
100 points in this game.
Yeah, exactly. They score 44, which is a good sign for them. But if they're giving up 63 to East Kentwood, that means it's going to be a long year in the Catholic League Central Division, who have pretty strong offenses.
And the idea that Orchard Lake St. Mary's, one of the real blue blood programs in the state of Michigan, the idea that they could be missing the playoffs 2 years in a row, coming off a state championship in 2016. I don't know if a lot of people would have foreseen that.
Yeah, and you were the outlier in that one, taking Orchard Lake on the road.
Yeah, that kind of balances out my other picks.
Yeah. All right, so Grand Rapids Catholic Central came down here to take on Saline. This was, again, a good schedule, I think, by Catholic Central, taking on a Division I squad. We had Saline ranked 19th in the state, and Saline wins.
It was close. Right? Catholic Central had the momentum right at the beginning, marched down the field with their passing game, scored, and right now, Saline's got a problem at quarterback because the kid they started in week 1 against Chippewa Valley got hurt in that game.
Is it Arbaugh?
Arbaugh, yeah. And he, they're working in a new offensive line. I think every spot they had to replace this year. So, I mean, that's obviously not a great recipe when you've got a new quarterback, too. And they were left with a junior who's a safety primarily, a sophomore, and a freshman who all took snaps during the game. The key was when they put their best athlete, Temple-bound MJ Griffin, in the Wildcat, and he actually did the snap to him was a little bit up to his left, and he almost got tackled immediately, and he just took off and used his speed and ran the other way, and it was a 77-yard touchdown. And at that point, the Saline defense kind of perked up, and you could see it, and from that point on, they've got a stud running back in Brendan Monday too, who they, can run when they've got their younger quarterbacks in there. And then they kind of churned the clock a little bit, and every time they put, it was kind of a similar situation as, Khalil Dossie with Groves. Every time Griffin came in the Wildcat, everybody knew where he was, and that really was the one big play that he made, but it was sincerely a turning point.
Grandville just couldn't handle De La Salle. Again, a team out west coming here, and De La Salle moves to 1-1, 28-7 the final. I think we thought it would be a little closer than this, but not surprised at all.
Good tune-up for defending that Catholic League Championship title that they have. And, when you got guys like Devin Campbell and Jacob Dobbs and Danny Matowski and Josh DeBerry, you're doing okay.
Yeah, we had Grandville 14 coming in. They won't be 14 coming out. We'll talk about that later in the show as we talk about Matt Mowery's new rankings, which are just out. De La Salle sitting at number 7 right now. We'll see how they fare. But of course, the big game of the weekend was Detroit King traveling out to Muskegon.
It lived up to the hype, just like Clarkston, West Bloomfield.
Absolutely. I personally felt this might be a little bit more higher scoring than just a 24-21 final. But again, if I would have really thought about it, this probably is about right what you'd figure the score would be.
What I do know is, even though they lost, DeQuan Finn is cold-blooded. Yeah. Guy threw for 280, ran for like 170.
Yeah.
He is by far the front runner for Mr. Football, and it's really his to lose right now.
Right.
I last week I declared him the best high school quarterback in the state of Michigan, and I stand by that. DeQuan Finn is a magic man.
Hats off to Cameron Martinez, who, granted, he got the first couple of games at home, which is perfect the way you want to draw him up, but he still made some tough short runs going up against a really strong King line and was able to bust through.
Well, and like we said last week, maybe those long runs are going to be shorter runs, and ran 30 times for 296 in the opening, ran 29 times for 154. So basically cut it in half.
And they were able to drive the ball against Detroit King. I thought the Detroit King defense was going to be the difference in this particular matchup. I thought they would,
Rich Miller and that crew. They're still, the definition of formidable.
Yes.
But you're going on the road, you're playing Muskegon. That's a daunting task.
Yes, we all picked King except for Matt, who took Muskegon to win that one. So congratulations. All right, we're going to take our first time out. When we come back, we're going to do a few more quick hits on some of the games from this weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about our Anvil Award in the third segment. It's kind of our new thing that's out there that you can vote on right now. We'll get your guys' thoughts on some of the beasts that we have on the list. I'm sure Scott has long and great stories to talk about those guys, so that'll come up. And then in the fourth, we're going to talk about our brand new top 25 that's out. Matt's rankings are out, so we'll just kind of quickly hit on that too. So you are watching or listening to Extra Point. We'll be right back.
I want to be a dermatologist, and though a lot of universities tried to recruit me for basketball, Lawrence Tech had the science curriculum that I wanted. LTU's Southfield campus is a great place to learn, and the classes are small enough that I don't have to wait for office hours to talk to my professors. They're usually right by my side, challenging me and guiding me toward a successful future. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
You ready, Darius?
Let's do it. Anybody want an autograph?
Autograph? We're here for the stuffed crust pizza.
Stuffed crust pizza? Hey, who do you think you are? End of the line, pal.
Flavor fanatics love stuffing their faces with our stuffed flavored crust. Get one for only $2 more on any large original round pizza.
Hungry?
Howie's! All right, thanks for sticking with Extra Point. This is the weekend recap on a Tuesday, normally a Monday, but because of Labor Day, here we are. Lots to still talk about. We kind of did a recap of a bunch of games in the first segment if you want to check that out. And we want to talk about a few more. I picked about 5 more that we could chat about. And, of course, what happened in Ohio. Cass Tech went to Lakewood to take on St. Edwards, and a Hail Mary.
They said a prayer, and that prayer was answered.
Boy, they sure did. And were able to beat what is a perennial power for those who do not know.
First, when you saw Cass, Jalen Graham didn't need to throw the ball. Well, he needed to throw the ball on the last play, and he tucked that ball a good, 60 yards.
He's a superior athlete. Jalen Graham is a superior athlete.
I was amazed how the receiver was able to get behind the defense like that. I mean, it was almost like he was unchallenged for that. I think maybe you were right. Maybe they were surprised he could chuck it that far, you know?
Well, because he's going to land at the Division I college level as a safety. He's not being recruited as a quarterback. So, maybe they kind of overlooked that arm strength.
Yeah, and he did have to have to buy some time. He had to get himself in a position that he could launch it like that.
A quick note, we're talking about teams that went over to cross the border into the Buckeye State and got big wins. Nova Detroit Catholic Central, my new #1 team in Oakland County. I do Oakland County rankings for the Oakland Press. And they went over there, played Toledo Whitmer, snapped Toledo Whitmer's 16-game regular season winning streak, and they did it in commanding fashion, 35-7.
I can't wait till CC and De La Salle get together this year.
Or Rice in a couple weeks, too.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think
Rice, big win, went over to beat Mishawaka Penn.
Yep, Mishawaka
in Indiana.
Penn. Yes, they did. Yes, they
Colin
did.
Gardner, we were talking about him last week, had I believe a game-sealing pick to win that game.
Swan Valley is 2-0. I put Fierce over Frankenmuth, 56-20 in this one.
Well, these are two D5 powers that are 20 miles apart on opposite sides of the city of Saginaw.
Right.
And they don't play each other anymore. They're in different divisions in the Tri-Valley. They used to be in the same division, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And they used to play, even after that, they would play the opening week of the season. And played since 2010.
Wow.
So getting these two together, Frankenmuth lost in the semis to Grand Rapids West Catholic, and Swan Valley lost in the finals. And kind of the argument was, well, what would happen if the two teams played each other?
Yeah.
So the schedule makers hooked it up this year in week 2, and it was pretty lopsided. Alex Fraze from Swan Valley had 5 touchdowns.
Holland West Ottawa is 2-0 on the season, but they needed 2 overtimes
to get past Tate Hollick.
Yes, Grand Rapids Forest
Central.
Hill Central. We had them 12th ranked in the state. Holland West Ottawa unranked coming into this week, but 42-41 was the final. I would have loved to have seen the highlights.
Well, yeah, and this was one where two coaching staffs that know each other pretty well, and in the second overtime, Forest Hill Central decided they were going to fake the PAT and go for the 2-point conversion to win it. And since they know each other so well, everybody on defense was yelling "fake, fake, fake," and they sniffed it out.
They were
and
already committed to, so they had to do it.
Yep. So that was the difference in the game.
Wow. Number 23, Lapeer beats Midland Dow. This was one game that I looked at. 31-19 was the final in that one. And again, Lapeer kind of at the bottom end of our rankings. A team that really has built a nice little program for themselves. Have been really strong. And Midland Dow was a good test. I think they had won in week 1. So.
Yeah, and Lapeer's one of those, obviously, that when they combine the two schools, as you see almost any time there's a combination like that, it takes a while just to get the chemistry, get all the youth programs lined up to go to the same way, and now Mike Smith's kind of got it rolling a little bit. What I thought was interesting, and I saw them at the Big House in week 1 when they played Lake Orion, they've got the big stud running back, Jalen Kirkland, who can just pound the ball, and everybody knows that, and everybody's focused on that.
Another one I wanted to mention, I'm going to get a chance to see Canton. I'll be filming the Canton-Plymouth game this weekend, which is, again, 2 new coaches, kind of a whole new rivalry renewed. It'll be interesting. Plymouth undefeated coming in, Canton 1-1 now, because they beat Northville 39-0, and I saw the score, and I was like, wow. Canton lost week 1 to Livonia Churchill at home. Obviously, they had something to prove coming back, but I did not expect a blanking of Northville.
Yeah, and that's a good Northville program that very rarely has that happen to them. And with Canton, you knew that they were going to be a little cheesed off by that first week.
All right, we're going to take another timeout. When we come back, we're going to, for those of you who don't know about the State Champs Anvil Award, this is an award we've created this season just because we felt it was so unfair how the great offensive linemen, defensive linemen, linebackers that we have in this state, when it comes to Mr. Football, they're always in our conversation.
They were handicapped. The race was weighted against those type of players,
and it's just because of numbers and stats and how finalities are turned out in games and players that stand out. So this is their time, their award. We have a top 10. You can vote for it right now at StateChampsNetwork.com. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Today I'd like to introduce you to the 2018-19 Student Advisory Council. They'll be reciting the MHSA Student Athlete Belief Statement.
As the voice of Michigan student athletes, the Student Advisory Council's role
is to convey the message of how high school sports are supposed to be played.
We are responsible for helping MHSA maintain a positive and healthy atmosphere
in which interscholastic athletes can thrive.
We believe athletes should be competitive,
sportsmanlike, and excel academically.
We believe students in the stands should have fun,
but not take the focus away from the game.
We believe coaches should act as teachers, helping student athletes develop,
while still keeping high school sports in perspective.
We believe that parents should always be positive role models
and be supportive of their child's decisions.
We believe officials commit their own time to high school sports,
and respect should always be shown and given to them.
The most important goal for student athletes is to enjoy high school sports,
while keeping a high level of respect for all those involved in the games.
For more information about the Student Advisory Council, visit our website at
MHSA.com.
All right, welcome back to State Champs Extra Point. I want to talk a little bit about an award that we've introduced this season, honoring linemen. And just like Mr. Football, the same kind of criteria that we have in how we're going to be selecting, performance throughout the season, big game performance, team success, highly recruited athlete, lower on the list because, again, how you perform shouldn't be, or how we choose our eventual Mr. Anvil, as it were, is
shouldn't be tied to what happens next year,
or tied into just because, exactly, how well recruited you are. Although we put 5% in there for that. So our list is at StateChampsNetwork.com right now. You can vote for those guys, and we have a watch list as well put on this. And again,
linebackers are involved in it as well.
Yes, it is. It's offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and linebackers. We have linebackers Lance Dixon in our top 10 right now. We have linebackers Marcel Lewis in our top 10.
Very well deserving, both of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of times you'll see defensive ends play linebackers. They kind of flop depending on the offense. Any of these guys that you want to just quickly mention and talk about that that you really, really love?
Well, look what Anthony Bradford's doing for Muskegon this year. With the rushing attack that they're rolling out there. And he's the one who's leading the way. So, Cam Martinez wouldn't be doing what Cam Martinez is doing without Anthony Bradford, the LSU commit.
Right. We talked about when Cam Martinez kind of fit into that system that, he's different than Ladarius, obviously, but it helps a lot when you're jumping from D8 to D1 when you have a Division I offensive line
going to the
across
SEC.
The board. Yeah. And he's the biggest and strongest of those guys up front, and certainly that's a large part of the reason that Muskegon has had 2 weeks of success is the fact that they have road graders like that.
East Kentwood put up 63, I think we said, against Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Logan Brown, the offensive tackle, is there. Maisie Smith, who is also on the defensive line. I'm not sure if he plays on the offensive line as well. He probably plays both, I would assume.
All those guys. Those guys go both ways.
He's on our watch list, and our watch list includes guys like the sophomore, now defensive lineman and offensive tackle Rocco Spindler at Clarkston, who we talked about early in the show. We talked about Canton's running attack. Darius Robinson is, I'm sure, playing both sides of the ball for the Canton Chiefs. And Braden McGregor from Port Huron Northern, Jacob Wahlberg from Mona Shores also on our watch list.
I think Carson Barnhart is an interesting guy on this list from Paw Paw. So he's a smaller school
Michigan
and that doesn't. Yeah, Michigan recruit. He played.
At least there's one Michigan commit on that list.
Yeah, right. And as we've noticed, yes,
wow.
Out of the Mr. Football and the Anvil Award, Barnhart's the only Michigan commit.
Yeah, they have some others that are, obviously like Selden is a Michigan commit too, and Tyrese that we talked about earlier. But yeah, Barnhart played in the interior offensive line his first couple of years in high school, plays tight end. Number 44 on the roster, number 1 in your hearts, obviously, and he'll be number 1 in your hearts if he can come into Ann Arbor next year and maybe play left tackle. But
they need one.
Yeah, he's one of those kids like Rogers when you see him, running around as a defensive end or a middle linebacker. You watch Barnhart's tape and you go, 300-pounder's not supposed to run like that.
The agility
He's not
factor
supposed to move
doesn't
like that. Right.
normally match up with that type of size.
And that's an incredibly good sign for somebody if you're going to try to transition him to a left tackle spot or even a right tackle spot. The fact that if you can get out and run like that, that's a huge difference between the old plodding 305-pounder who runs a 5.5 40. These guys, some of them can fly.
Yeah. Well, if there are going to be changes to the list, it's going to happen in our Football Forecast podcast. So we will make those changes, and this goes for Hungry Howie's Mr. Football, which we'll talk about on Thursday as well. So of our watch list, you might see some guys saying you can affect that, though, by going to our website and voting at statechampsnetwork.com. The leading vote getter can never be removed, no matter what we plan on doing. So that is how you can participate. We'll wrap this segment by letting you know that, again, we don't pretend to think like we know that we can judge all these guys by ourselves. We have enlisted a group of coaches who are going to help us sort this out, and they'll be ranking our guys, and we'll kind of take those in as a consensus to who should remain in the top 10 watch list, who comes in, who comes out. You've got people that you think we should be putting on this list. Tell us about it and tell us why. Back it up. Don't just throw a name out there. Give us your reasons, your research as to why this person should be on, whether it's Mr. Football or it's on the Anvil.
Oh, don't worry. The CC Faithful is doing that with Baydoun right now. It's like Babbitt's. We're getting all the emails and everything.
There you go. So, and that's all right. We encourage that. We welcome it. Bring it. You can
Smash Mouth Football, Smash Mouth social media.
That's right.
Smash Mouth emails.
That's right. Just go to the contact page at statechampsnetwork.com. You can do it on social media, Facebook, Twitter. We love it all. So anyway, we're going to come right back. Matt Mowery's got his new top 25 football rankings in the state out now. We're going to talk about some of the movement that took place. Stick with us. One more segment to go on Extra Point.
My passion is architecture. I don't want to sit around passively studying. I need to create. In our architecture studios at Lawrence Tech, we collaborate with students, faculty, and professionals from around the world. And from day one, we design using the same industry standard software that architecture firms use. I really feel like I'm designing my own future here. Lawrence Tech. Possible is everything.
Fundraising should be fresh, flavorful, and simple. We have the perfect solution at Hungry Howie's, Dough Raiser. Your team or school can sell paper pizza certificates that can be redeemed for one medium pizza at participating locations.
Hungry Howie's makes it easy. It's just a little mini pizza box, but we make lots of money, lots of dough.
Go to doughraiser.com to learn more and sign up. Your next fundraiser comes with flavored crust. Welcome to Hungry Howie's Dough Raiser.
All right, welcome back. Four Fingers in the Air, fourth quarter here on Extra Points. And we are now going to talk about Matt Mowery's new top 25 rankings. I do want you to know that he toils over this list. It is not something he quickly puts together. It is, methodical, and it is researched, and it is consulted with coaches, all of that kind of stuff. Again, I do thank Matt for being with us now. Tom Markowski did this for 15 years, and Matt stepping in, doing a great job. Kat, let's just get right into it. And again, you can check out the rankings right now at statechampsnetwork.com. Cass Tech stays number 1, and when you beat an Ohio Power, why would you fall out of it?
Yeah, and that was the question. Obviously, with Muskegon beating King, they were going to get a bump there. But do I bump them to 1? Do I bump them to? And it's hard to bump Cass Tech. I bumped Belleville after a win last week down from 1 to 2.
And shout out Noah Stamps-Freeman for actually catching that touchdown from
Zach.
We forgot to mention him on the last segment.
Kind of jumping over the entire defense. It seemed like
Yeah, and Muskegon moving up to number 2.
Right, and you can't argue that they are one of the top 2 or 3 teams, regardless of division, in the state of Michigan. So having them at number 2, and then we've got Belleville right behind them, because Belleville, as we said when we put them at number 1 to start the season, it's one of the most talented teams, and it's just
cavalcade of superstars.
Absolutely, when every kid can show you his offer sheet, and it's about 6 programs long.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and sometimes you have teams that have kids that 10 kids with offers, and 7 of those kids are all MAC offers. Right. This is like 12 kids with a long list of power offers apiece.
Yeah, which is always hard to manage and coach sometimes when you have all those egos in a room. Detroit King is at 4 now. That's where we've got them. They fell to Muskegon. But jumping up 3 spots is Detroit Catholic Central. They are now our number 5 team. Again, a huge win against a great program like Toledo Whitmer, and to do it in Toledo.
Well, they look like one of those teams that's got all the parts. They've got the quarterback and Marco
Genrich looked really good. He was kind of quiet in week 1 against Western. They didn't really need him with Keegan Kohler going for 250 on the ground. But, he threw for, I think, 135 yards and looked really nice in week 2.
Yep. And then they've got Kohler, as you mentioned, and they've got a really, really stout defense. So this is one of those teams that belongs up there with these are the no doubt contenders.
And I'm sure the Wolves fans are going to want to feel that they should be in the top 5. We've got these. You've got them right now at 6, a solid 6 for Clarkston. But again, we're gonna see Clarkston play some other solid teams coming up, and we'll see where they jump. You've got Macomb, Dakota jumping from 20 to 16.
Mm-hmm. It's that Macomb Red race is going to be very interesting over the next couple of weeks.
Well, we'll see it on Friday because Chip Valley plays Ike.
Exactly, and that's the fun thing about this week. Even though we're out of those kind of intersectional matchups, we're starting to get into divisional plays for most teams, and the fun part is that we have a bunch of really, really good matchups right off the bat that can go a long ways. As we mentioned earlier, Oak Park and Harrison play. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Carmen Ainsworth. I think Carmen Ainsworth has Lapeer.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see divisional races already shape up into, oh my gosh, this team has a lead on that team right off the bat, and that's always fun when you can jump right into divisional race. You don't have to wait until week 8 or week 9.
And Dakota has one of Scott's favorite quarterbers there,
Mark Tocco, man.
Johnny Manziel Jr. over there that he said in the
I said his arms like a magic wand. He waves it and all of a sudden, hocus pocus, touchdown.
Holland West Ottawa makes its debut. They jump into the top 25 at number 17. We talked about them in the previous segment, and rightfully so. Forest Hill Central is now in at number 20. Mm-hmm. And 2 teams that are out, Grandville and Churchill, are 2 teams that have fallen out of our top 20.
Well, those are both good teams, too.
Yes.
They weren't taken out of the rankings because they're not good teams, but Granville's 0-2, having played Clarkston and De La Salle, and that's a murderous schedule to start off, and obviously it's going to make them better, but at this point it's kind of hard to keep an 0-2 team in the top 25.
Yeah.
And there are other teams like Davison that kind of deserve to be in there, and West
Harper
Ottawa.
Woods here, 23.
Harper Woods is still in there.
Have we ever talked about Harper Woods being a top 25 team?
Well, it's going to be interesting interesting in a few weeks when it's going to be Harper Woods and River Rouge.
River Rouge, yeah. That's the one game.
The one game in that.
It's like the PSL. It's the one game that's going to decide it because
with Harper Woods, what division are they going to be in when it's the playoffs?
I thought 3, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure what enrollment.
Well, because I just didn't know. Like, it could be a potential. Hey, Harper Woods and River Rouge can play each
again
other
in the playoffs,
right?
Or Rouge is probably going to be in 3 this year, so it could be interesting.
So that's the top 25. You can check it out at statechampsnetwork.com. And again, Matt works really hard on it. Again, of course, we love the conversation that takes place.
Input always welcome.
The Fortune Tractors fans are always out in full force when it comes to this list as well. So, but again, we love that, and that's what makes high school sports great. And again, this list, like all of our lists, will change and will be affected by what happens. And again, that's it. And it's not going to please everyone, but it's great. And we love the conversation. Have it with us and make your case. And who knows, maybe you'll win us over and your team or your player will now be in our respective lists. So that is Extra Point for this week. Make sure you tune into the football forecast on Thursday at 3 o'clock. That's when that one premieres. You can catch it on our YouTube page, on Facebook, Twitter, all the audio platforms, SoundCloud, Google Play, those particular platforms, and we will talk about the big games we have coming up this weekend. Again, Canton Plymouth, they're getting together this weekend. He mentioned Carmen Ainsworth and Lapeer. That was one I didn't even get to see. Oak Park Harrison, the main event coming up on State Champs.
Oxford West Bloomfield. Oxford 2-0 out of the gate. I don't know if anyone saw that. No. The Bud Rowley special right now. You want to talk about coaching up some guys because I don't think that Oxford really had anyone, and that's all due respect to their players who are obviously some very talented young men, but no one was saying, look for Oxford to be a sleeper in the OA Red, and it looks like they are, and they'll be tested against West Bloomfield. West Bloomfield better be ready for what Oxford's going to bring.
Will that one be on the blue turf or that?
No, it's at West Bloomfield.
Okay, at West Bloomfield. All right, and I'm sure there's a lot of the West teams that will now start playing each other where we had so much crossover going on the first couple of weeks. So check it out Thursday at 3 o'clock, the football forecast, and we'll see you right back here on our Monday slot, 5 o'clock on Extra Point. See you.